Welcome to the 21st week after Pentecost. It's Wednesday, October the 16th, 2024. This is the Manna at the Tap podcast where we as a community actively seek the spiritual nourishment our souls crave. The daily lectionary reading we explore together is the Manna, designed to nurture our spiritual growth and provide the sustenance our souls need. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual journey, and together we share insights and interpretations from these readings which enrich our spiritual lives. Luke's gospel is full of references to wealth and its use. And in Luke chapter 16, it opens with this phrase, "There was a rich man." And our lectionary text begins with the same phrase. Jesus addressed his disciples and potential followers in Luke chapter 16 with the parable of the dishonest steward. The Pharisees, who loved money, criticized Jesus when he said a person cannot serve two masters. Jesus then responded to their sneering with a second parable, the lectionary reading today, Luke chapter 16, verses 19 to 31. The parable attempts to raise the consciousness of the rich about poverty, compassion, and social inequity. It challenges us to consider what wealth and poverty may look like where we live. The parable is about a rich man who is not named, who displayed his wealth with beautiful clothes and lavish feasts. He overlooked a beggar named Lazarus who sat with his sores outside the rich man's gate, wishing he could eat the food that fell from the rich man's table. His only comfort were the dogs that licked his sores. Before we continue, let's get some clarity here. The name Lazarus, this is not Lazarus, the brother of Mary and Martha, who was also from a wealthy family. Lazarus, which means God has helped, is the only name given to a man in Jesus' parables. The unnamed man. In later times, the rich man in the parable was named Dives, Dives, and that word means rich in Latin. Now let's continue. The text does not say if the rich man's cruelty towards Lazarus was intentional or not, because it was the role of the wealthy in ancient times to provide alms for the poor in their community. But the parable is about the fate of these two individuals after death, the reversal of their lives. During Lazarus' lifetime, the rich man's power was absolute and unquestioned. And when Lazarus died, he was carried away to a place of honor beside Abraham, God's friend, and the father of Israel. When the rich man died, he found himself in Hades, a place of torment and eternal punishment, according to Luke chapter 10, verse 15. And all of his power was gone. But the rich man tried to assert some authority by asking for relief from his suffering, addressing Abraham as father and asking him to send Lazarus, whom he repeatedly neglected in life, to help him. Abraham's response reinforces the reversal in their fortunes. In their lifetimes, Lazarus suffered terrible things, and the rich man experienced good things. But now, Lazarus is comforted, and the rich man is in agony. And between them is a great chasm that cannot be crossed. The rich man and Lazarus are separated by more than awareness or the gate at the front door. Lazarus is not a part of the conversation between the rich man and Abraham. The rich man will make another plea, and this time on behalf of his brothers. He wants to spare them his torment. And Abraham's answer is important. Everything to be done has already been done. Their response is up to them. They have Moses and the prophets. Abraham said, if they had not listened to Moses and the prophets, they definitely would not have been convinced by someone being raised from the dead. Luke stresses the reverse status of the rich and the poor in the kingdom of God. And based on this story, God's eternal judgment has everything to do with how we use wealth in this life and whether we attend to those less fortunate who live in our midst. God will ultimately vindicate the cause of the poor. Jesus is the one who is speaking, and what he says is important, and it does matter. We have all been given a measure of authority and power that we can use to serve our neighbors as we serve ourselves. The answer could not be more straightforward, but it can sometimes be messy. Some needs can be met and others cannot. There are things we can and things we cannot control. But what is important is that we all can help someone along the way. And we can use our compassion, stewardship, and gratitude to help relieve the suffering of others.